Lifetime Achievement Award, Dr. Donald Hricik. Don has moved our field forward through both his involvement in clinical trials that have shaped the care of transplant patients and his education of the next generation of transplant professionals. His devotion to the field has been demonstrated over and over again through his unwavering support of the AST. He's been a member of the AST Board, edited the AST Primer on Transplantation, has been a member of nearly every AST committee. He's held leadership positions on the Education Committee, the Development Committee, the Planning Committee, to name but a few. As the AST's Postgraduate Education Director, he created the AST's Fellows Meeting, which continues to be the initiative that evokes the greatest pride amongst our members. The development and success of this initiative is an example of Don's extraordinary ability to rally AST leadership and the diverse membership of our society, and has to be considered one of the greatest accomplishments of the last decade for our society. He's also moderated the last version of the transplant nephrology core curriculum. His numerous publications in transplantation have made him an internationally recognized expert in the care of transplant patients. Last year I had the privilege of observing one of his lectures from the audience, and I must say it was masterful, but as I thought about it, perhaps less impressive in that he's contributed many of these seminal papers, and it would be certainly easier to present or recite one's own work than to try to capture the work of others. Don has moved our field forward through both his involvement in clinical, On a more personal note, in addition to his achievements in our field, he's also made significant contributions to the arts. As an artist, I must say some of this reminds me a bit of Andy Warhol. Perhaps he'll say something about that. He's also the author of novels in the medical mystery genre, and we should stay tuned for an upcoming release in the next few months. As you can see, Don's a man of many accomplishments. He has an extraordinary career devoted to the field of transplantation and has demonstrated an exemplary commitment to the vision and mission of the AST. I can't think of a better way to recognize these contributions of our esteemed colleague than with the prestigious award, with this prestigious award. These are not the upcoming releases. These are available to any of you now. The upcoming release will soon be out. The Lifetime Achievement Award is our society's highest honor, and Dr. Hricik joins a distinguished group of Lifetime Achievement Award recipients who have created a legacy of excellence to the field of transplantation. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Donald Hricik.
Ken, thank you very much for those very kind comments. I'd like to start by expressing my sincere appreciation to the American Society of Transplantation for this prestigious award. Certainly the most important award of my lifetime. And it's a particular honor to accept this in the name of Vince Armenti. Ken didn't mention that Vince, I think, spent virtually all his career here in Philadelphia as a surgeon at various institutions. And I was a good friend of Vince's. I'm not sure if Mariana Martell is in the audience this morning, but in the 1990s, she and Eli Friedman put together a transplant symposium at Downstate in Brooklyn on a yearly basis, and for some reason, she always invited Vince and I to speak at that symposium. Vince, of course, provided an update on the pregnancy registry, and I gave some silly talk on steroid withdrawal or something like that. But Vince would drive up from Philadelphia. We were put up at a Manhattan hotel, and it was nice that Vince had a car because we could drive to Brooklyn and save the expensive taxi fare. But for 8 consecutive years, he got lost in Brooklyn. We discovered some of Brooklyn's finest neighborhoods that way. So Vince was a gentleman and a scholar who we'll miss, but not for his navigation skills. I have several people I'd like to thank or acknowledge in accepting this award. One is Diane McKay, who is an outstanding physician scientist in San Diego. not only did she nominate me for this award, but it's very appropriate because she was also, or was also close to Vincent. She, in her role as one of, I think, America's top transplant nephrologists as a woman, and he, of course, because of his interest in women health. I'd like to thank several members of the AST staff who I've worked with over the years. A few of them are no longer with the Society. That includes Susan Nelson, who retired last year. Floyd Pennington was once the head of CME for AST, and Pam Ballinger, who organized this meeting for, I don't know, a couple of decades. And in addition, we'd like to thank some of the current members of the staff who I continue to work with. That would include Tina Squante, Libby McDowell, Beth Meyer, and Kristen Bramall Burke. I also, of course, want to thank my own family, and happily my wife and 4 children are here with me today to help celebrate this award. That's my wife Lynn on the left. The tallest guy in the back is my oldest son Brian. To his left, hand on shoulder, is Kevin. Kevin is now a 21-year survivor of acute myelogenous leukemia. His sister there next to my wife is Lauren. She was Kevin's bone marrow donor. And of course, that's Michael graduating from college a few years ago. It was the happiest day of my life as I finally stopped writing those damn college. I have one lovely granddaughter, Riel. She's 5.5 going on 21. She told me recently that the Cavaliers will beat the Bulls in 6 games in the upcoming NBA playoff series, and I hope she's correct. Ken mentioned a couple of my hobbies. My other hobby is traveling, happily usually with my wife Lynn. Here we are visiting Western Japan a few years ago, winding down after visiting, I think, 10 consecutive Buddhist temples in one day in the lovely city of Kyoto. My wife and I celebrated our 37th anniversary just a few days ago. We're very proud that we raised 4 kids who've become excellent adults and good citizens, all successful in their own realms. I also want to thank my local faculty that I've worked with over the years, spending my entire professional career at Case Western in Cleveland. Unfortunately, this montage is a little old, and some of the senior people there have retired or moved on, and I'm afraid that I missed some of our more junior faculty who have not yet been added to the photograph. In the center of the montage is Josh Augustine, who's in the audience today. Josh is my most important junior partner, recently became the medical director of our transplant service, and I'll mention him again in a minute. One important staff member not shown here I would like to acknowledge is Jeannie Oakley, who was our transplant administrator for over 10 years and recently moved on to a similar position at Mayo in Phoenix. Jeannie has taught me everything that I know about the business of transplantation. Finally, the other 2 people I'd like to acknowledge because they've been very important in my career. Jim Shulak came to Case in 1985 and was the director of our organ transplant program until he retired in January of last year. Jim is now emeritus professor and leading the Good Life in Naples, Florida. And finally, I want to acknowledge Peter Heger, who I think is also in the audience. Believe it or not, Peter was my junior faculty member at Case when he was in Cleveland for a few years. And I took over as the chief of the Division of Nephrology in 1993. Obviously, Peter has ascended the ladder, now works at Mount Sinai, New York, and I think is acknowledged as one of our nation's leading transplant immunologists. Jim Shulak certainly taught me everything I knew about clinical transplant, at least in the early days. Peter certainly has taught me everything I know about transplant immunology. I'll conclude by pointing out that my own scientific contributions to the field of transplantation have been minimal to modest at best. I'm more proud, or at least equally proud, of my accomplishments in the area of education, both locally in the training of young people and nationally through societies such as the American Society of Nephrology and especially the American Society of Transplantation. You know, I thank Ken for plugging some of my novels. The artwork's not for sale, but the books are. If you get a chance to read my latest novel, which is coming out, I hope, in September, the full title is Escape from Cleveland, which is a double entendre. The subtitle is A Tale of Two Doctors in a Pre-Retirement Meltdown. And it's, like most of my novels, a semi-autobiographical fiction depicting the life of a senior academic physician who's pondering early retirement because he can't stand the things that are going on in medicine. Resident duty hours, electronic medical records, increasing documentation, value-based medicine, all those things are driving me crazy. The book, as in real life, may get to sound a little bit negative, but as I look at the work ethic and productivity of some of the young people, such as Josh Augustine, who's worked directly with me, Diane Seabrook, Aparna Padja, other people I've been fortunate enough to help with training, I think medicine is probably in better shape than I think as you read through that book. And I think particularly transplant medicine has a rosy future. I don't emulate Andy Warhol in terms of my artwork. Since you mentioned his name, I think this concludes my 15 minutes of fame. And I'll end by thanking you all for helping me celebrate this prestigious award. Thank you very much.